Welcome, everybody, to our Perry's Inside Scoop for the Orange heading into the Louisville game number 11 of the season, along with Dino Babers. I'm Matt Park. Good to have you along with us. And, Coach, this is just, before we get into the football, just an unusual time on campus, and it's what pops up from time to time on college campuses where there's agents of change and certainly political discussions and things that are part of the daily course of what we do on a college campus. I'm curious what it's been like in your team room this week.
You know, the team really hasn't gotten into that stuff. We're kind of locked in on the focus of what's going on. There's no doubt that they're student athletes, and they go to class, and I'm sure they've had discussions on that stuff. But when they come back to kind of do their football thing, I think it's maybe even a breath of fresh air for them to get away from it a little bit and lock in on a common task as a family before they have to go back to class.
Sure, and it always kind of dovetails with what we talk about in a football context. When you go on the road, it's just you. And you were telling us that last week you didn't even have the full complement of travelers going on the road for what turned out to be a remarkable result at Duke.
You know, sometimes, you know, it's like the mighty 300. Even though you got a huge army behind you, if you can just get a bunch of guys that are committed to something, sometimes you can pull off a better performance than you could if you had all the extras.
You know, I'm always curious in the reactions to games and coming back through setting the tone for the following week. So when you go on the road, you win 49-6. Let's go through some of the things that were standout in that game, kind of trademarks we haven't seen. I mean, your opening two possessions are drives of 74 and 80 yards for touchdowns, and certainly that would be the type of thing you'd love to sustain if you could.
You know, the coaches did a fantastic job scouting the guys early, and they came out and they did exactly what we thought they were going to do, and we took advantage of it. And the interesting thing is after those first two drives, we got nothing like what we were usually getting, which really kind of made us sit back and look at this is what they're doing, this is how we need to attack them. And it took a little bit. You know, the second quarter was a little dry, but coming out in the third quarter with the turnovers, those 3 straight turnovers by the defense, and being able to capitalize on 2 of them taking care of it themselves on 1 was really, really exciting.
Did that feel like more of your identity now 3 in a row and scoring after all of them is obviously anybody would take that any time. That's even way better than last year's team. But what last year's team was known for was leading the nation in takeaways and being plus 13 in turnover margin on the year. That stretch in the third quarter was as good as you've been this year in that area.
Yeah, that's Christmas. That's Christmas
Right.
And Thanksgiving and New Year's was really good. That's unusual, and to be able to go bing, bing, bing. Basically, I'm not going to say put the game out of reach, but 1 touchdown later, the game was out of reach.
Andre Sisco's played 20 college games. He has 10 interceptions, which is pretty remarkable. Already among the all-time leaders in interceptions here at Syracuse. Only about a dozen players have 10 in their career, and he has plenty of room to grow. But he hadn't taken one to the house just yet. How pleasing was that to see? And again, it takes an effort from the entire team to make that happen.
Anytime there's a turnover and you don't have to run the offense out there, and you know that you've already got 7, that's always exciting. You know, I don't think people really appreciate the statistic that you just threw out there. He's been in 20 games. He's got 10 interceptions, okay? This is not about me. He's a way better player than me. I was in 48 games, and I've got 0.
Hey, it wasn't for a lack of effort. You were playing on the other side of the ball a lot of the time, too, so they had that going on. But, you got to have that nose for the ball, and certainly Andre Sisco has that. So, it's funny to laugh. We haven't laughed around here in the last month or so related to football, ending a 4-game losing streak and getting the first ACC win. So the fourth quarter was the laughing part of the game, right? Jarvion Howard goes in and rips it down the field for 100 yards himself and scores a touchdown. Jawar Jordan scores a touchdown. In the grand scheme of things, how important is that?
I think it's really important. You know, this is the biggest point differential win that we've had since I've been here. Power 5 opponent. And the crazy thing is that because of depth and how competitive the games we play in, it's the very first time that we were able to play a lot of guys off the bench in a game like this. And a bunch of those guys are from down there. Mo Neal had 75 family members there to see him go over 100. And if you watch the video of guys on the sidelines and laughing and enjoying and celebrating with one another like a family, like it's Thanksgiving, that was good to see. And just let them know that it is important. And everybody is pulling for one another. And we don't care who gets the credit, as long as it works out well for the guys in orange and blue.
It was 49 points on 7 of 16 passing as a team. That's really an historic stat line there as it worked out. I mean, you had to run the football, had to get a defensive touchdown, and be effective in a lot of other ways. Last thing on that game, how did you grade out the offensive line, which finally by this point in the season you felt confident in putting Carlos Vettorello at center and then Aaron Service back at left tackle?
Obviously, an extremely high grade to have 2 backs over 100 yards. I'm not sure that's happened since we've been here. And Carlos did a nice job at center. Service at left tackle for the very first time. Wow, what can you say? And then you got Evan and Dakota doing a fabulous job at guard. And then obviously Matthew, our young Canadian freshman, doing a nice job on the other side. And when I say that, I've got to add 2 more people. It's very interesting that we get 2 backs over 100 yards since the very first. It's the most plays that Chris Elmore has ever played in a game on offense this year. And then you throw in the 2 tight ends, Hackett and Luke Benson, and it makes it a very, very interesting scenario of who's on the football field and the things that you're capable of doing.
Yeah, Benson getting a touchdown as well on an out cut up the right sideline. Lots of positive things happening in that game. Steve Standard in his first game as the interim defensive coordinator, pitching a shutout, as it were, in terms of touchdowns, allowing just a couple of field goals to Duke in that one. So now Louisville, who is rolling along, really, this is a team that won only a couple of games a year ago, and Scott Satterfield has them headed in the right direction. There's
no doubt he's done a fabulous job. He's probably up for Coach of the Year. I'd be very surprised if he's not right there. This is not the team that we played last year. The team that we played last year did want to be out there, and I guess 2 days after they played us, they changed coaches. These guys are playing together as a team. Scott's got them rocking and rolling, and this is a really big task that we've got in front of us.
Speed is something that you've outlined, and that has been really a mainstay going back to Coach Petrino's days at Louisville. They got horses.
There's no doubt. They've got 4-4, 4-3, 4-3, 4-4. Who's that? No, we already said that. No, that's a different guy. And they got a bunch of single-digit guys that get out there in space, and they can really go. The quarterback's fantastic. Tailback's a 1,000-yard rusher. Tutu can make it happen as a wide receiver. And then they got another guy that's just as good as Tutu, number 5. So they've got some guys that can make it go. Their returners are dynamic, and they have a lot of athletes out there.
Premium for your defense, right? And being able to get out on the perimeter, especially this week.
There's no doubt we've got to get out there. We're going to be able to have a lot of one-on-ones, and we're going to have to tackle some really nice people out in space.
Okay, let's get to our fan questions submitted at cuse.com/InsideScoop. One more week for that if you'd like to chime in before the Wake Forest game. And we had one from Mike in Manlius, coach, who asked, we were talking about running into a new coach here in Scott Satterfield. Mike's question is, what coach through history would you like to have met in person that you haven't?
Oh, that's easy. It's Vince Lombardi. I mean, I've got 2 quotes in my office. One's by him, and the other one's Bud Grant from the Minnesota Vikings. But Vince Lombardi, he's the guy that everybody wants to meet. I think he was way ahead of his time in the way he could get people, a bunch of different individuals, to become one and play a football team is what he really brought to the game, and everyone else tries to emulate.
Is the quote on the wall, what the hell's going on out there? No?
Grab it. No, that's Hank Strand with the Kansas City Chiefs. That's a different one.
You got a seal here and a seal here. That's another good
that's
one.
The one. That's the one.
All right, Coach, best of luck trying to get 2 in a row on the road here, okay?
Thanks, Matt.
Orange head coach Dino Babers and our Perry's Inside Scoop.